Hi, welcome to Revenue Marketing Television, the CMO Insights series. I'm your host, Jeff Pedowitz, President and CEO of the Pedowitz Group. Today, I have a good friend and long-term person I've had a chance to work with, Stephanie Meyer, who is Chief Marketing Officer at Connecture. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Hey Jeff, this is fun.
It's fun. We haven't even gotten started yet. We're having a ball. So this is great. So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about Connecture. What does the company do? And tell us a little bit more specifically about your role there.
Connecture is a mid-sized company that is responsible for all of the software behind, I would say, the vast majority of healthcare decisions that are made in terms of insurance for consumers. So we're kind of the Intel inside of the world of choosing insurance. So we try to make it simple for consumers, and then ultimately to the plans who are our customers. So let's say, the big United, Humana, those types of health insurance plans, those would be our customers. And then, of course, their members would be the end consumers of the software we produce.
Okay. So does that mean then you have a limited clientele that you're going after, or are there additional targets that you sell to?
There's absolutely additional targets. You've got the megas, right, which would be the kinds of names that I just mentioned there, but we do a lot of business too through selling through brokers. You could go direct to employers. You could go to the new kind of developing market, which is the provider-sponsored health plans. So as you start thinking about hospitals in the space becoming their own insurance in their communities, that's another potential target too. So it's pretty big.
Okay. So now I've known you, of course, you worked at a very big company before here. How have things changed for you, and just in terms of approach, working at a multinational big company, now working at a mid-sized company? Yeah. What's different for you?
I'd say the stress is different. Okay, not less stressful. I was careful about that. The stress of working for GE Healthcare, which I spent a huge portion of my career at, and it was fantastic. The stress there is kind of like, how do I move this massive mountain, right? How do I mobilize 1,000 marketers to get them to think differently, try new things, introduce technology? It's just a different kind of internal stress, right, that happens. With Connecture, I'm having a ball. It's much smaller, and the fun, the stress is kind of the kind of, oh my gosh, I can do anything I want. Oh my gosh, what should I do? Should I do the right thing? How should I time those things? Because you don't want to break the system, but I just can't go fast enough. So there's just a different kind of stress with this new company.
Okay. So how, you've obviously been running marketing organizations for a long time. What's changed the most, in your opinion, over the last few years?
Oh, absolutely. I would say technology, but hands down. And that's not really a surprising answer, I'm sure, to anyone else who's listening here. But I think it's also the application and the new way of thinking about the technology that I continue to be excited about. It's not, we're not quite ready for AI. I realize it's coming, but just kind of thinking about the ways we can engage differently with customers, and how we better enable our marketing teams even to communicate with our internal customers through better dashboarding, better tools, just data. So I think that has been the biggest change for us. I think the other thing is really changing the mindset, and Jeff, you've heard me say this many times, is it's not about B2B or B2C, it's about B to human. And we have to remember that those user interfaces are, I don't drop, my experience with Amazon when I come to work. I want to be able to interact with my vendors the same way. And I want them to want that from me. So I just think it's really asked all of us to step up our game of thinking differently about how we engage customers.
So now at healthcare, I know that you actually had an employee that was focused on evaluating technology and figuring out how it fit into your organization and advised you. What are you doing now at Connecture? Do you have that luxury now, or do you have to approach it differently?
I actually brought that guy over with me.
Oh, you did? Okay. He was that good.
So he's actually serving in the same capacity. But I think what's different in a smaller company, and some of you CMOs out there who are in kind of a mid-sized company will understand this, is we're kind of jacks of all trades. And when we want to make a stack decision, we think about getting the whole team together. We work with our counterparts in sales and say, okay, we're kind of evaluating this technology that can do these kinds of things. What do you think? We make sure that we have a lot more buy-in. Whereas I think it was much more plug and play at GE and maybe some of the other bigger companies out there. Here, it's everybody gets to help be part of the decision. The really great thing about walking into this company, though, when I came a year ago, was that they had already made great infrastructure choices on the bare minimums, right? I had a Marketo shop and I had a SFDC. With those two things, you can start bolting on, as you know. Mm-hmm. And the other great thing about it is that SFDC, as strange as it sounds, is actually managed and run by the finance department. So there's not this funky sales and marketing going against each other kind of thing. It's actually really collaborative, and sales is actually then presented with the combined, what we want from the marketing tech stack to what they want in SFDC. And we come to the salespeople, we're like, here's the solution, and they're like, cool. So just there's been some fun things about the way that we're established here at Connecture.
So tell me a little bit about your approach to people. What do you look for in building your organization of today? What types of skills, and how are you, shaping your team for planning for tomorrow?
Yeah, but that's a great question. I think that in a company my size, the most important thing is to have a couple of your pillars, right? I've got my hardcore, been around the block, seen lots of stuff kind of guys, and then filling that in with the greener, younger, talent that is like learning to get their feet under them, maybe, or maybe into their kind of next level outside of college. But one thing that we have done, and I'm so excited about this, we did a summer internship for the first time last year in marketing. So I was brand new coming in, and we had some summer interns come in. And we did it from the local colleges, right? Assuming that some people would decide maybe just to stay and work over the summer. It has really paid off. And in fact, what we were able to do is keep them employed part-time. So you don't lose all of that, and they're hungry and excited, and they've ended up being fantastic contributors because they have no preconceived notion, right? So they just get in there, get dirty, kind of start to make things happen, and it's been really a big win for us. So the right mix of green and kind of pillared talent, I think, is another thing. And then, for me, honestly, it's just about making sure that they have the runway. I don't really do anything. Let's face it. I'm a CMO. I clear paths, and they execute.
I think you're probably understating it a little bit. I think you probably do a lot. But, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry too, guys, about my cold. Of course, the day that I'm doing this, I get this throat. So, Jeff, let me take a drink of. But why don't you work up a really good question?
No problem. We can even edit this part. We'll give you like 30 seconds to kind of just...
Okay. That always happens when you get excited when you're talking, then the tickle starts. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it.
You're doing great.
Okay, sorry. Right? Thank you.
All right. So yeah, Stephanie, that's an awesome approach to handling your people. Tell me a little bit about outcomes. What are you measured on? What does your boss hold you accountable for? And then what are you in turn holding your team accountable for?
Doing this when I was a small company, right? I'm accountable for everything that leaves the office and faces a customer, a client, a prospect, the media, the investor community, like everything from PR to employee comms is me. So the metrics vary a little bit if I'm talking about the metrics for how I want the employees to feel about our brand and how they're thinking and driving things forward, how I want my salespeople to say I'm doing a good job or not, and then the customers. But I'm going to guess you mostly focus on kind of external market results. So if you're talking market results, a couple things that I found that have been interesting is that we use a lot of webinar, and we really like that format, and our clients seem to like it too. So we have pretty good turnout. Every webinar we host, we have well over 100 attendees.
Wow, that's great.
Which, is kind of hard to do. And they're not, I mean, outside of my industry, we kind of geek on insurance, right? So I get it. Like I know what we're saying here. But we're talking about the ACA, we're talking about Medicare, we're talking about, and it's hardcore stuff is all I'm saying, right? And we have 100 plus attendees every time. What is also an interesting metric for me is that we have about a 50 to 55% register to attendee. So we even have a lot more that register, which then becomes, as leads for us, and we can manage those, that part of the database of, hey, sorry you couldn't join us. And so, we look at registrations, we look at attendees to it, and then, of course, the leads that come as a result of that. I would say we also are looking at the increased traffic on our website, how many followers we have on LinkedIn. There's a lot of those kinds of things. I think the one that I go home and feel really, really good about, and those are all exciting, but I feel really good that my sales teams and our employees are like, Steph, you can't give us enough. Like, this is awesome. We want to be part of the brand. How can we get t-shirts printed? Can we, I love that they feel proud of what we're doing and kind of the image we're putting out there.
That's awesome. So from a scaling standpoint, what are some of the processes that you're working on that are going to get your team from point A to point B?
I think probably on top of most of the CMOs out there listening, they would agree with me. Our database, right? We have got to have a clean database. We have to have a sophistication level. We're kind of at basic hygiene right now. We feel like we've got that going for us. Our next step is really going to be, okay, guys, you see all these shiny objects out here called ABM and the ways we want to think about, those kinds of new types of engagements or tools we want to add. We can't get there without the sticky middle bit being figured out, right? Which is, hey, sales guys, you got to continue to play nice in terms of how, you're naming conventions on how you interact with SFDC. So there's all the process of, it's not just about buying a list, guys. That was the old days of marketing. You can't just, spray and pray.
So do you actually budget to maintain and clean your database, or just to add to it?
So maintain is really kind of grunt work. I mentioned those interns. That's what they live and breathe all the time. And we actually, we do some hygiene stuff. We do have some tools that help us with some of the cleanliness. And of course, we do have some industry trade lists that have been created that are developing better tools themselves, so that when the list comes to us, it becomes something that we can be a little more living and clean. But it's largely manual.
So tell me, okay. Yeah. I mean, hey, at least you're doing it. So, because I know a lot of...
So I think that process, and I'm sorry, Debbie, the other big process that we're going after now, which is we have pretty much a brand new sales team, right? They've completely turned over, brand new marketing department within the last year. So we're going to work on, I think, next in terms of the account-based marketing, but then also sort of lead nurturing and thinking about different ways of engaging our salespeople so that they can go out and be the big whale hunters and make sure that they're taking care of their customers when marketing can be more of a partner on the back end. And that is really about having good, whether we call them MQLs or SQLs or however you want to do that, but you have some sort of service level agreement between the functions of how do we make sure that we're taking care of ultimately the customer and they're getting what they need, whether it's from the marketing department or it can be from the sales teams.
No, that's great. Thank you. So tell me a little bit about your customer lifecycle marketing. So how much of your marketing programs and campaigns are geared towards net new acquisition versus adoption, cross-sell, upsell, wallet share growth, retention?
I don't think we're much different than the I think I saw recently. I'm going to quote the wrong analyst, but of Forrester, 13% or so is spent on kind of the fostering, nurturing life cycle stuff in marketing, and the rest is all about the new logo hunting, if you will, kind of out there, lead generation. So we're working to kind of right size that. I've not measured it to that level of specificity, but I would have a gut feel that that's probably about what we do as well. And I think that this company has always felt like, well, that's the client delivery team's job, right? They're somebody down the way is now handling the customer's needs in terms of, oh, they want to add Medicare, or they want to add a new tool or product to their business, as opposed to anything that marketing's doing. So I'm trying to change some of that as well. So I'm happy to hear from any of the CMOs out there that could offer me sage advice on how to change that metric. But that's probably about where we're at.
We're going to put the call out right now. see if we can get them. Well, God, we are actually out of time. So,
oh, Jeff, come on. There's so much more to say.
I know. We're going to have to do a second segment, or third or fourth or fifth, because you and I, we can go for hours. So
I know. This is fun stuff. Hey, Jeff, I really appreciate the opportunity to tell a little bit about our story and just maybe be cathartic to other CMOs out there who are kind of on the path of trying to do some of the cool stuff that we know is on the horizon.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate it, and feel better, okay?
Yeah, thanks. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.